was very lucky last year. No, was it this year? It's this year. Brian took me up to BCG, and I listened to an awful lot of people talking about how we can fight them in the courts and we can fight them on the beaches and all this sort of stuff. I think we might be forgetting stuff. I think we might be actually getting pulled into them. So I was talking to Brian on the way back, and I thought I ought to put something together about the election, really, I suppose. And normally I start with a song, because that's what I do. So that's part of the song. I called it, what are we talking about? Interpretation and definitions. I'll just go through a few things about this before we go into it. The language spoken or written in the following presentation, unless otherwise, is mother tongue, used in reality, common to the people of this land of England. There's England and there's UK. You all know that stuff. A lot of this stuff, this you will know. Oh, there's a little thing on the bottom there that says Max is not legally trained and Max is legally incompetent, which if you look that up is quite interesting. I am unable to give evidence in a court.
What do you mean?
Okay, if you're unsure of what reality is...
Max, is that even your own evidence you're unable to give them? Or stand as a witness?
Come to that later. If you're unsure of reality, there is a legal definition on its way. English is not my language. I'm making no claim here that I have anything to do with the language. It's what my mother taught me, what I learned as we do. So, just, no. There we go. I don't accept any liability for any definitions or interpretations you have in your heads for words that have come up. Alright? I'm going to be talking as they talk. This is coming from their words. Man, unless otherwise stated, means female and male people. And it says high whiff man and high wear man. That's Old English. That's how we used to address each other, apparently, 1,000 years ago or whatever. All definitions come from Black's Law Online or Black's Law Dictionary. Blacks, they say it's American. It doesn't matter. It's the same system. It's the same words. The other dictionaries I've used have been the Oxford English and Nuttall's Standard of 1890, which is lovely. I found a definition in that of naive, and naive means open, unaffected and honest. So I'm going to be as naive as I can tonight. Right, language. The language we have in common usage is the language of the land, mother tongue. It's lawful. It's the speech we learned while we're in the womb. It's language proper to people, sometimes called babble. She's mentioned babble this evening, Christine, psychobabble. It's language used by people of, at and in reality. This is real, this is reality. Okay? Now, other language we've got in daily use, we've got legalese. It's the language of the sea. It's legal. It's, in their words, formal and technical language of legal documents. Now, language, it's not jargon, it's an actual language. It exists as it's on its own merits. It's a language used by the Law Society, which was set up as a private business in the year 1600. It's private business. It can't function in reality without express consent of people. You will all recognise the square boxes. This legalese can often be found within four corners. And if you don't, you probably heard of the four corner rule, folks? Anybody not know of the four corner rule? No. Look it up. What is reality? Okay. I'll start with real. From the law book, the Law Dictionary, first edition. It's available on PDF, online. Real means in common law. Okay? That's their definition. Real is in common law. It's not their law. Real action is what we're doing now. This is at common law. And here's my favourite. Reality, in their words, is in foreign law. Right? They cannot touch reality. Neither can we, really. I mean, you know, what can we do? Everything real is naturally outside the jurisdiction of man-made, artificial societies and legal fictions. And I noticed actually that this Earth thing came with the programme, and it hasn't got England on it, which is a bit strange. I don't know what that means. So how are people enticed from reality in foreign law into this weird, strange unreality? Is it the whips of the monarch? Anybody notice that when the Queen was crowned in Westminster Abbey, she had a whip on her left shoulder? Anybody notice that? No? Okay, is it promises of crooked politicians? Money? Or all of it? Let's have a look. Man. What is man? Now, what saith the good book? You go to court, you're given a book to swear on. So that book tells you what man is. It gives you a definition of man. It doesn't tell you anything about Eve being born first or Adam first, whichever way around. It says, so God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Now this isn't the first time it's happened then. Replenish. This happens, I get the feeling this happened before, and I get the feeling that we have the opportunity to remember who and what we are every now and then. And I think we're at one of those points in time. According to Black's Law Dictionary, the entry for man reads sea monster. It's in there, it's in the book, but it doesn't give you a definition of what man is.
It's not sea as in the ocean?
No, it's not sea as in the ocean. It's a reference. If you look in the dictionary, and it'll give you a comparison word. And it's a comparison word. It's not a definition of it. So we'll have a look. Monster is defined as a human being. Naturally born versus a legally generated juridical person. So that's the first mentions we've got of human being and person. Okay? So it's not the Bible. Man. We're man. We ain't human beings and we ain't persons. A human being considered as capable of having rights and of being charged with duties, while a thing is the object over which rights may be exercised. There's no mention of man here. A monster is a prodigious birth, a human birth or offspring not having the shape of mankind, which cannot be heir to any land, albeit brought forth in marriage. Okay, this is all legal definitions of what is going on. A human being, a person of the male sex, a male of the human species above the age of puberty, in feudal law, now we're going back to Anglo-Saxon stuff here, a vassal, a tenant, a feudatory, someone to pay the rent. Okay? The Anglo-Saxon relation of lord and man was originally purely personal and founded on mutual contract. Now, a lawful contract has got to have full disclosure, consideration, lawful terms and conditions, and the wet signatures of both parties, or all parties. You have never seen one, probably. One mention of man there, and it's not a definition. Prodigious, in this lovely old dictionary of mine, is defined as very great in size, enormous, monstrous. So there's the human being monster. Prodigy is defined as anything wonderful or extraordinary, a miracle, a portent, a monster. One of them. No, there's no man there either. Okay. as far as I can work out, human being appears to mean the colour of man existing. Hue is the colour of man existing. The law industry uses it as well, the colour of law. It's not law, looks like law. We assume it's law because we love assuming things. And we get into trouble. Human beings then are monsters capable of having rights awarded and withdrawn, not to be considered things. Let's have a look at what a thing is again. The subject matter of a right, whether it is material object or not, any subject matter of ownership, good word that, ownership, within the sphere of proprietary or valuable rights. Okay, so we're talking commerce. Man is a creation of nature, a creature. That's how they do it. It's not the creation of law. Man is a real creature and comes in all shapes and sizes. I like that picture. What's a person? I had to use this. It's, you know, it's, don't call me Shirley. Sorry about that. Okay, person. The definition in Black's is a human being, a monster, also termed natural person. And they've used the word person to define person. So there's something wrong there. The living body of a human being. And this one I like. A person is an entity such as a corporation that is recognised by law as having most of the rights and duties of a human being. Okay. There are many wonderful examples of persons. Disabled, disappeared, interested. Loads of them, loads of them. And there's this one as well. Oh, I forgot this. Part of the male anatomy is also legally known as a person. Didn't get a giggle. Damn. What was it, Matt? A Cernavish giant, James. It's been there a long time. Right. Artificial person is an entity such as a corporation, created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. A being, real or imaginary, who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. Real or imaginary, more or less a human being. Law is a creation of man. And she's not with us tonight, but I thought I'd put that up because she's written a brilliant book called Law is Force, The Lioness. If you ever get a chance to read it, I think she's changed the title to So You Think You've Been...
Broken the law.
So you think you've broken the law, yeah. Right. No creation of nature on this planet Earth possesses anything called right. If anybody here has got a right, put it on the table, show me now. Okay? There's no such thing as a right. Rights are awarded and withdrawn by man-made and therefore artificial corporations, societies and agencies, such as United Nations, United Kingdom, all of them, all of them. Anything that's a company can have its own rights. Societies can have their own rights. If the UK colony became a society, we could have its own language, it could have its own rights, constitution. In order for rights and acts of parliaments to be effective and attain standing for people, man has got to consent for it. How many people in here have read an Act of Parliament? Good, okay. How many of those people understood the language and the grammar that was used in the Act of Parliament? Good, that's good. How many people are aware and understand that Acts of Parliament apply only to government employees, members of the public? Did you know that? Good. People don't read Acts of Parliament. How do they know they apply to people? They've been told somewhere else. It's called hearsay. Hearsay is not acceptable as evidence in a lawful court. A lawful court, according to Houseberry's, is a jury of your peers. 12. This is a very interesting Act of Parliament, the Representation of the People Act. Before we go on to it though, we've got to understand what the word include means in all legal documentation. A legal maxim, the inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others. That makes it pretty clear. If you include one thing, everything else, that's what that thing is. Nothing else, absolutely nothing else. Right, people often disbelieve their ears and eyes and assume their own personal interpretation to fit it because, you know, we've all been taught how things are. So they might say, when they write or say person, they mean man. Of course they do. Clearly, they do not. Person, as we shall see, in all matters legal and in each and every Act of Parliament refers only to association corporate or unincorporate, unless otherwise stated. And I haven't found anywhere else where it's been stated otherwise yet. Okay, here's the Act. This Act defines how persons are able to vote and be represented. Section 202 of this Act is called the General Provisions as to Interpretation, and it clarifies how people should interpret the words in the Act. We want to look in particular at person and voter, and I want to draw your attention to the fact that this Act has no interpretation or definition of the word people or representation. Okay? So, from the Act, person includes, without prejudice to the provisions of the Interpretation Act 1978, an association corporate or unincorporate. Includes. That is all it is. There it is. And that's the Interpretation Act. They've said person includes a body of persons, corporate or unincorporate, and they've actually used the word persons in their definition. And so it's really hard to know what they're actually talking about. But it ain't you and me, I can tell you that. None of these persons are women or men. Voter means a person voting at an election and includes a person voting as proxy. There it is. That's what a voter is. It's a person voting at an election as proxy. So it's an association, corporate or unincorporate, voting as proxy. Anybody here a voter?
No, thank you.
Anybody vote? Did anybody vote? Who voted?
I tried to.
Okay.
I didn't.
So you all went along and you were all unincorporated, corporated things. Okay? Right. To be absolutely clear in this matter, persons cannot read, listen or make oath because they have no ears. They have no eyes with which to see, nor ears with which to hear, nor mouth with which to make claim. Persons really need a man or a woman. In commerce, a person is a mortmain corporation and needs man to read, write and do its arithmetic. Anybody know what mortmain means? It means dead hand. It is deceased. It's pining for the fields. Mortgage means death pledge, just as an aside. So when you get your mortgage, you're making a death pledge. Okay? I'm neither colour of woman nor person. I am woman. Oh man, do I really have a monster in my underpants? Okay.
You've got a giggle, Matt.
I got a giggle. I got a giggle, right?
Strong giggle from down here. I'm not telling you.
It's the newbies. It's the newbies.
The newbies.
Okay, moving on to elections, registration and voting. What is a vote? To vote. It's from the Latin suffragium, meaning suffrage. And suffrage, it's also an anagram of veto, which I find interesting. I don't know why, I just find that interesting. Suffrage, a vote given in deciding a controverted question or in the choice of a man for an office or a trust. This is 1890, so, you know, women didn't stand for Parliament in those days. So. Vote or right to vote, especially for a representative in Parliament. A united voice in public prayer. United, unitted. Right? You're no longer an it. You're no longer a single entity. You're united, unitted. Right, public officials would have you believe your vote is your voice. This is absolute cobblers. How often do people in England vote? Anybody know? Every year, the people who make up government, or the private corporation of the United Kingdom, have a requirement to ask every one of us if it's okay to carry on. Every year, it's just like the income tax. Every year they've got to ratify income tax to make sure. Every year. Each household receives communication written in legalese, normally addressed to the occupier, asking people to join the electoral roll.
Is that the census? Is that the...
No, that's the electoral roll.
No.
Just to so you can pay your council tax.
No, I just have.
There's a heavy fine if you don't pay it, if you don't sign up, which is actually not true, because I know an awful lot of people who didn't sign up. In fact, if they went to court now and got warrants for everybody who didn't register this year, oh, you know, we could cut down on the cuts. Okay. It's a smart deception. Smart, by the way, is that's another talk altogether. The first definition in a dictionary of the word smart is pain. So your smartphone is not clever, it's painful. So who or what is the occupier? Occupier, one who is in the enjoyment of a thing. Remind you, a thing is the subject matter of a right, whether it's a material object or not. Occupation, an activity or pursuit in which a person is engaged, especially work or business. I like this one. The possession, control or use of real, which is in common law, property. Comes from the same book. Definition means the same thing. Real is in common law. The seizure and control of a territory by military force, the condition of a territory that has been placed under the authority of a hostile army. Okay, so you know, if you answered to the a letter addressed to the occupier, you are saying that you took whatever you're occupying by military force. Therefore, you are the enemy. An occupation is a period during which it's held by military force. I'll give you an example of occupation, a couple of examples. People claiming to represent Corporation Israel currently occupy land people representing Corporation Palestine claim, just as people representing Corporation Deutschland occupied many Western European corporations during the economic policy that we commonly call World War II. There you go, not much difference in that really. Registration. We need to know about this. To register is to hand over title ownership of whatever you're registering to whoever you're registering it to. Okay? It's very simple. Title ownership. Ownership. When did I first register, Mum? Did you sign me up to this, Dad? Going way back in time, right? Offspring of man, babies. Incredibly bright, switched on creatures, taking in and learning information at phenomenal rates. Really switched on, very bright. Immediately given names by their parents, which basically they're abandoning them. They're saying to the state, look, I've got, what's this, what's this? And the state says, oh, we'll appropriate that, thank you very much, and we'll give you a receipt. It's called a birth certificate. Okay? Birth certificate is evidence of commercial value. And if you haven't looked at your birth certificate lately, on the bottom of it you'll see the warning, a certificate is not evidence of identity. How many people sent their birth certificate off to get a passport to be used as identity? Everybody does it. It's not. And it's Crown copyright. Right, going on to school. Switched on bright kids. They go off, they're placed into schools. School is a reference to a large group of fish or sea mammals. Language of the sea. Okay?
Holy see.
On a daily basis, young people in schools are required to tell teacher they are identical to persons expressed on birth certificates their mothers and fathers accepted as receipts.
Before it begins.
This must come out of their mouths of their own free will. It's got to be voluntary to have legal standing. A school, which is a person, and it's also this new thing you might have come across called a corporate parent. It must achieve the ownership of young people first thing every school day in order to assume responsible for id entities for whom only after registration the school has a duty of care. Once this is achieved, they're no longer operating in their capacity as people, they are considered id entities, persons, children of the state. Identical means exactly the same as. Okay? Paper neither looks like nor operates as people. Paper is two-dimensional, stationary. It doesn't go anywhere until somebody puts a signature on it. Signature, sign of nature. Remember George Bush saying, you're either with us or against us. Say, here, present, I'm here. That's enough for your consent. Con, with, sent, dispatched. You're with us. You've consented. You're with us. Subjected to free compulsory lessons, bright switched on offspring are taught to be less on. And those who are not prepared to be less on, called more on. Actually, that's interesting because the dunce hat, this is an aside, the dunce hat came from a time when, I've got to get his name right, Scotus, a chap called Scotus, philosopher called Scotus in the 13th century, had an argument with Thomas Aquinas, and so he was shoved into the corner with a little hat, basically. All his followers, they were called dunces, duncemen. Right, since those days at school, we've all got used to it. We register everything. We register cars, we register houses, we register babies, without a second thought. Nobody really even thinks about it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Just my opinion.
Absolutely.
Investors in people, you see it everywhere, that sign. It's a new name for slave traders. They're investing in people. What are they doing? So, we know about registration. Let's look at elections. Register to vote. Push to open means to open, push. There's a door there. There's to open, push. Doesn't mean push to open on a Thursday in May or sometime in a couple of years. Just the same as register to vote means to vote, register. It doesn't mean vote on a Thursday sometime in May. It means vote as you register. Voting is the act of registration. Registration is the act of voting. Registration is positive response, consent to an annual legal requirement people operating as public servants in government have to the people they serve. Only with this consent can they continue to tax, create legislation and engender misery for billions of people who appear mostly aware that of their existence in reality, in foreign law. Okay? Why are people required to go to polling stations to express opinion rather than go to a voting station to cast a vote? Because voting occurs at registration, not at the polling station. Polling stations are where horned beasts and other monsters are taken to have their horns trimmed or removed. I thought Elvis looked rather good on this, actually. Polling's got nothing to do with voting. General elections are for voters. That's association corporates or unincorporates voting as proxies to express preference for which general they would like to lead them. Can I lead? That's so exciting. District is a military term. A ward is a prisoner of war. What are the legal consequences of putting a cross on a piece of paper? Your local authority already claims to be your corporate parent. You're going to hear a lot of that in the coming years. Our mayor's been telling us every opportunity. Our local mayor at Torquay gets up and he says, "We are your corporate parents." That's an interesting chats with him lately. Your cross simply confirms your incompetence. You know, sign here. No, don't sign. You can't sign it. You can't sign a voting slip, a ballot slip. You're not allowed to sign it. Why is that? Because if you sign it, you're competent. You know who you are. If you have registered to vote, you've already agreed and accepted people masquerading as persons, monsters. They'll make rules for you and your loved ones that you may feel compelled, obliged or duty-bound to adhere to. And in the legal world, may is synonymous with must. If you ever see may written anywhere or must, it means one or the other. So if it says you must pay this by the end of the month, actually it means you may pay it by the end of the month. Only 2 votes count at polling stations. Ballot slips with votes of candidates. Spoiled ballot slips. Any and all ballot slips that counting officers decide are defaced are discarded, counted only as waste. They're not counted as spoiled ballots. Okay? That's very important. If a chap comes along and says, "Oh, that's not quite a spoiled ballot," throw it away. It's not the people who vote that count, it's the people who count votes. Joseph Stalin. Imagine, this is going away from facts now for a moment. Imagine if everybody who registered to vote actually went to the polling station. The ones who don't go, as a rule, don't go. Imagine if they all went and spoilt their ballot. And spoilt ballots won. Do you know what the law says? If all the ballots are spoiled, they have to start the system completely from the top down. Change the whole system. 20% of the ballots spoiled is enough to put stop to the onslaught of person party politics, is what I'm calling it. 50% would be a celebration of real action by man, the reality of man. Reports indicate that for the last election, well over 7 million people did not register to vote. Okay, they did not hand over title ownership of their vote. They still own their vote. Everybody else who's registered has handed over the title ownership of it. But they still own it. They've expressed no confidence in current systems and they retain the ownership. These people are present, they are not represent. Okay, they're not represented, they're here, they're actually here. And I think there's a few in this room. awareness of the tyranny of party political voting in a constitutional monarchy is growing. We live in a constitutional monarchy. It's been a constitutional monarchy for as long as we've been here. It's not a democracy. It never will be as long as we have a monarch. Because you don't get democracy and a monarchy. You simply don't get it. So if you want to learn how to spoil your vote lawfully, this is how you do it. It's an example of a ballot. Take a pen. Don't use a pencil because we can rub them out. They can put whatever they want. Draw a single line through the candidate boxes and write spoilt ballot on it. So it is irrefutable evidence. That is a spoilt ballot. That will be counted as a spoilt ballot. This is only if you've registered, of course. A vote is consent for continuing tyranny. That's the way I see it. Thank you. I haven't quite finished. I just want to draw your attention to a few words. E. To exist. To occur, to take place. Having the state equality. This is real. This is what is. This is truth. Stick a lie on the end of B, you've got belie. It's failed to give a true notion or impression of something. You change the, stick an F on the end of that, you've got belief. Oh, there's no truth there, that's right. You've got belief if you've got an F on the end. It's an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. Trust, faith or confidence in someone or something. This is also no truth. It's not truth. You change it to believe. Accept something as true, feel sure of the truth of something. Accept the statement of someone as true. Feel sure someone is capable of a particular action.
It's not true.
Hold something as opinion. Think or suppose. There's no truth there either. To know or to know not. Don't believe anything you see. Do your own research, check it out. Find out for yourself. Ignorance in the presence of freely available information and knowledge is a choice. You all know this. A choice only you make every day. Truth is here, waiting for you to reveal it.